Welcome to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast.
Every week, they talk about the Vancouver Canucks with a fair amount of nonsense thrown in.
Sure, they're never the first with the news, nor the best connected, and definitely more off the rails than on.
But they've been talking puck the longest, and that counts for something, right?
So strap in for the longest running, best mediocre Canucks Hockey Podcast.
It's C4 with Chris and Anna.
Hey Anna, has JT Miller been traded yet?
Not as far as I know, but who? We just don't know at this stage.
No, we don't. I mean, the week that was a week that was. That was for certain. Prior to, I mean, we'll get into it and rewind, but prior to the events of this weekend, the hot rumor going into the game was JT was potentially not going to dress for the game against the Oilers, but JT did dress. We'll get into it, but who knows? I mean, while we're recording, it's a Sunday evening right now. JT Miller could get traded. Not to suggest he will. We have no clue. Maybe he won't.
Yeah, it's like the dreaded, it happens quite a lot on Guardian Football Weekly podcast about they're talking about a manager struggling and then he gets fired before the
sacked
before the podcast goes out. So they always have to add a voice note. So maybe we'll be adding Chris will be dropping a little cold open that JT Miller just got traded before we release the episode.
Hi everyone, you're going to be listening to us talk about JT Miller not getting traded. Well, guess what? We were wrong. Yeah, who knows? I mean, I've been a fan enough of the Vancouver Canucks long enough to know that if there's a way to Canuck it, they'll Canuck it hard.
That Bergman means so many things.
How's been your week, Anna?
It's been better than the Canucks week, I guess.
Okay. That's, low bar.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I've seen 4 movies in 7 days and spent the off days watching the Canucks, so that's not...
That's a productive week.
Yeah, so once again, it's been up and down.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The last movie that I went to see was either Dune 2 in the theater. So friend of the show, Jay, and actually Nexus, and a few others, they took me to see it. It was a late show, and I, one, didn't realize it was a 7-hour movie, or felt like that. 2, it didn't start until 10:30 at night. I'm an old man, Anna.
I am younger than you, and that sounds terrible to me. I just got out of a 3.5-hour movie, which has an intermission built into it. It is that long. I saw The Brutalist, and I thought my boss was crazy for seeing it on a Friday night. I could not imagine. I saw a movie on Friday night, but it was less than 2 hours, so...
So how is the intermission handled? Do curtains drop, or is it just the let's all go get coffee? Let's all go get
so
candy?
it literally, there's a point in the story that kind of made sense for the intermission, but it literally it's built into the film.
No, I know what you're saying, but how is it handled? How is it addressed in the theater?
But it literally has a photograph that's pertinent to the narrative of the film as the backdrop. It says intermission. And then there is a countdown that we didn't realize was in place until there were 2 minutes left. So I actually couldn't tell you how long the intermission is. It's 20 or 15 minutes. I think 15.
Okay, so, but it wasn't how the old school movies did the whole dancing hot dog.
Which wouldn't have really been
I'm not suggesting that's appropriate.
Appropriate for a movie that's about Jewish immigrants to the US in the 30s and 40s anyway.
Oh, well, after I've just ruined the episode and probably got us some horrible reviews, we're going to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, who also could very well ruin this episode and get us horrible reviews. But at least that's not just all on us. It's somewhat on the Vancouver Canucks. The week that was a week. Lots didn't happen. Lots all of a sudden wound up happening in the last 2 seconds of the game on Saturday. JT Miller, not yet traded, just checking in. It's only been 4 minutes of the show. Still not traded. If he gets traded, we will update you if it were to happen while we're recording. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. Like, what is this trade conundrum? Like, what ultimately occurs? What next? If that were to happen and it goes down, does that solve all the problems, or is the parachute cord being yanked hard? We're going to get into that half full, half empty. But before that, let's get into Rewind. The Vancouver Canucks happened to wind up that stellar road trip. Where I say stellar, I'm still somewhat high on the fact that they shut the Toronto Maple Leafs out. Okay, so
one good result.
And we had talked about how they'd gotten points, and so really it came down to the game against the Jets. And having gone back and listened to our prognostications, we both believed that the Winnipeg Jets game would probably be a loss.
Yeah,
it was.
It was a loss. Like, we both said that. I said it would be a close loss. The vibe
very close.
Could not be more wrong on that. It was a 6-1 loss.
Okay, first of all, it was really close until the 6:59 mark of the first period.
Yep.
It was less close at the 13:01 mark of the first period. And then at the 13:37 mark of the first period, it was out of hand.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and I actually didn't think to look this up. What is the fastest consecutive goal scored by the same player? Because Kyle Connor scored within 36 seconds of his second goal to get a natural hat trick. I'm curious. Like, I would imagine it's happened. Like, you just got out for your shift, you score, you get kept out there, and somehow magic transpires. But that's pretty darn quick.
It is. But the whole hat trick was 6.5 minutes, and I have just looked it up. Apparently, the fastest natural hat trick was 21 seconds. So,
okay, that had to have been in the OG6
it was
days.
In the 50s. So,
okay, even before the OG6. Okay,
yeah.
But I was thinking like the goal to goal. But if it's been a natural hat trick in 21 seconds, well.
Yeah, that's...
What were the
I don't know
3
that
goals and every 7 seconds it's a goal. Like,
yeah, there isn't any more detail in this article, but that would be something to look up.
Were there no other players on the ice?
Yeah.
Who were the two teams?
Well, it was Chicago Blackhawks. Went back when it was 2 words, Blackhawks.
Black Hawks.
Yeah, Bill Mosienko.
Does it say who they're playing?
No, it does not. There you go.
Okay.
Interestingly,
doesn't really matter.
Little hat trick trivia. I mean, one, do you know where which sport hat trick comes from?
Haven't a clue. Is it going to be cricket?
It's cricket, because it was 3 wickets and 3 balls, and they handed around a hat as a sort of well done to this person.
A trophy?
No, like put money in the hat.
Oh, okay.
Because you're impressed by it.
You did so well, you get a bonus.
Also, Australians, because they're absolutely strange and bizarre people, think that a double hat trick in cricket is 4 wickets and 4 balls, which is insane. Well, like, surely a double hat trick is 6.
As everyone who listens to this show knows, I call cricket Aussie rules baseball. So,
but like, if someone said double hat trick to you in hockey, you would not be thinking 4 goals.
6 goals.
You would be thinking 6. So yeah. There you go.
So the Vancouver Canucks were thoroughly outclassed in Winnipeg, and the sad part is that in my hockey pool, I only got 1 lowly assist out of all of that.
Oh, well, that's a shame. But I will say, like, Winnipeg Jets.
Actually, I don't think I got an assist. If I recall that, I was more upset I didn't get even an assist because I had Morrissey. And he got diddly squish. That's right. 0 points. That's what I was pissed off about. Another high scoring game. I only got 1 assist.
Yeah, the Winnipeg Jets are the best team in the West, probably. Like, we can argue whether, like, the Oilers are or whatever, but, like, one of the best teams in the West. So you're going to have to be good, really good against them. Like, Canucks can definitely beat Winnipeg Jets on their best day. But that
was not the Canucks' best day.
The first period, they didn't even, like, Winnipeg Jets didn't have to be good. No offense to Carl Connor on his beautiful natural hat trick, but like, I would say most, like, probably all three of those goals were little gifts for him. And he took advantage, but like, yeah, it's just so far from what you need to be like match up against a team that's better than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Vancouver Canucks were up to their old tricks. The blue line, save for Quinn Hughes, non-existent. You had, a power play that couldn't get a zone entry. They had 20 players on the ice. They weren't playing with any confidence. And, when they were down 3-0 going into the intermission, you would think they'd come out with a little extra compete in the second. And I guess they kind of did. But Winnipeg came out with more. Now, Winnipeg did get 2 power play, and that helped bump their shot count. But things went from bad to worse. Like, I think the shots were like 20-10, if memory serves me correct.
In the second?
Like, yeah, for Winnipeg, right? Like, yeah, it was a bad game all around. In fact, I would argue it's the type of game when your goaltender is Lankinen was off. You would think Lankinen would get pulled, but then you remember, well, Demko's coming back from injury, so do you really want to put Demko in here at this point? It's done.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I think, the approach that they took.
Which is, yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, considering you're kind of balancing a 1A, 1B situation right now. I don't know if that was the best move, but maybe they're still sort of putting it as not giving Demko unnecessary game time, which I do understand that point of view. Yeah, I obviously feel sorry for Niels Hoglander, who's been really jonesing for a goal, finally gets one, and it's in a 6-1 loss, so it doesn't really count for much.
I had commented on Blue Sky that the effort that we were seeing in Winnipeg was almost equivalent to the type of game that can get coaches fired and players traded. Now, I wasn't trying to suggest that Tocchet was going to get let go, nor was I suggesting that the team was suddenly going to trade a player because of the result of that game. Like, obviously, it's much more complex than that. But it was a bad game every which way you look at it. And teams will have these types of games from time to time. Even some of the best teams, they'll just lay an egg. The problem is the Vancouver Canucks, they've been packaging those eggs up and selling them.
Yeah, it didn't come out of nowhere, right?
In the last 2 months, we've probably got a carton.
We love an overstretched metaphor here on C4. We really do. But yeah.
I mean, let's scramble things up here. Okay,
But yeah, like, it was a woeful game. Obviously, Canuck came back against Winnipeg. We weren't necessarily expecting him to sort of launch straight back into things. But yeah, safe to say that didn't happen. Maybe we've yet to see Canuck really come back, which I guess we'll get into. But yeah, like you say, that result in isolation at the end of a 6-game road trip, bad, but like, everyone has bad days, like, really wouldn't be concerning if it wasn't for the context of Canucks routinely giving up leads and like the OT losses and other losses they've stacked up. So yeah, it was, that point where you think, that was awful. Can it possibly get worse? And of course it can.
So the Vancouver Canucks come home. They take on the Los Angeles Kings. And you would think that loss in Winnipeg would have really, shaken things up. Team would have known, hey, we got to come out. We got to play this game a little bit better, smarten up. And okay, for maybe a couple of minutes, a few shifts, the Vancouver Canucks looked good. So long as you discount the fact that they gave up that goal on, the first shot in the game? It was Alex Turcotte scored.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, we've seen the Vancouver Canucks all season long give up this early goal. That doesn't mean squat. They can come back and win a game and score a bunch themselves, right? But see, I don't know if Alex Turcotte Saw what happened to the team in Winnipeg. But when he scored at 9:18, did you get the feels that he was thinking that there was a natural hat trick in the making?
Yeah.
Because another goal got scored at 9:42 and he was on the ice for it.
It's true. I did, I think I turned it on somewhere at the end of the first period. Maybe I caught the very end, so maybe I caught that 3-0 goal. I was playing netball. If like Canucks could stop playing on every single friggin' Thursday, that would be really great for me, actually.
I'll write a letter to the league. Let's see if we can move things around for you.
Yeah. But I did, I think I heard the goal, the 3-0 goal, on the radio. Yeah, like, it didn't, the whole game, the holistic look at the game, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as Winnipeg. Like, I don't think. Like, it's not. Yeah, even though it was a 5-1 loss again. But I really think, yeah, that maybe the first two periods were that bad. Or at least the first half of the game was that bad. And then Canucks sort of showed some signs of life in the second. Of course, when Kevin Fiala scores a 4-1 goal 15 minutes in, it did feel like, okay, we're done. That rally was done. But yeah, it did feel for like 5-10 minutes like Canucks were starting a comeback. It just fizzled out before it got there. And obviously, the comeback was led by Mr. Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, which is good from a hockey pool. He's the one Vancouver Canuck I have. And
oh, that's good.
Gosh darn it. Quinn's doing me some serious solid points this season. The Vancouver Canucks power play, we've talked about this before, has issues. They went 0-for-5 against the Kings. Like, one might suggest that the Vancouver Canucks were being provided ample opportunity to get themselves, re-involved in the game. This is even prior to Quinn's goal. But, we'll talk more about it coming up with the Edmonton game. But something I've really noticed, and this is actually when we get into the Edmonton game going to be reinforced, is that the Vancouver Canucks power play hurts because their zone entries are non-existent.
Yeah.
And if you can't get the puck into the offensive zone and in turn maintain control, to move it around with speed, move it around with aggression, move it around with confidence, you're likely not going to score many. And as we see in the Vancouver Canucks, just ain't.
Yeah.
The Thatcher Demko started this game. Thatcher did not look so good. But again, this is, I don't want to say it's preseason. This should be regular season for him now. He's had his preseason.
Yeah.
But it's very clear this is not the Thatcher that we are accustomed to. Maybe he's still working out the issues with the Pallopides, whatever muscle.
I actually can't correct you because I don't know how to say it either. So
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like Thatcher needs to work through some things, and
yeah. And the thing is, we're so used to like stealing games, Thatcher, and like we'll probably talk about this even more in the Edmonton game. But like, there's definite moments of defensive breakdown, like we've seen Canucks just like especially the Deane, Myers, these guys with size on their side who are like not clearing the crease, just for like not pushing attackers out, not clearing the puck when they have the opportunity. But we need Thatcher to not be there every single time, but like a lot of the times, like
yeah. Well, if you compare him to Kevin Lankinen has made some pretty big saves. Like, there are games you can clearly say, hey, he's the reason the team's still in this. Hey, he's the reason that the team won this. We haven't got to that point yet with Thatcher.
Yeah,
right?
Since he's come back, for sure.
He's had some good games, but he's not been in a game where you're like, without him there,
yeah,
it's a different story, right?
Yeah.
And that's, as you'd said, that's what the Thatcher were accustomed to.
Yeah, and I guess also the concerning things aside from that, Thatcher Demko not being at his best would be like just really dumb decisions. Like, and we've talked about this on Discord a lot, that when you're having these struggles, when your star players aren't performing, when you're having injury issues, like, you got to work on things you can control. And what you can control is your work ethic. You can control, like, your hockey decisions. Like, the stuff we talked about last week about, Quinn getting stuck in the box because they didn't engineer a game stoppage. And, like, it was this game, right, where they didn't actually realize that they were on the power play at some stage.
I think so.
Yeah. So it's just like, and you can control your effort, right? Your work ethic, like I said, and that should lead us on to JT Miller, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, and I've spoken about JT in like 2 or 3 episodes now where we're seeing instances where his effort just checks out, like it's almost non-existent. There was a moment in this game after a Kings goal where one might argue JT was somewhat responsible for it occurring.
One might argue, Rick Tocchet would argue.
Tocchet walks towards JT, something is said, and JT stands up and moves to the end of the bench away from Tocchet. I'd asked in Discord, what do you think? Hey, do you think that's I'm not listening to you, coach? Or is that coach telling player, go sit in a corner and feel some shame? Seemed to be some split opinion there as to what might have transpired.
I mean, I do think it's either, go sit at the end of the bench, or like JT realizing he's not playing again anytime soon. So let me go clear the space.
He got 14:34 in the game, a little bit less than what he had gotten the game before.
And he did come back on, I think, but
he did. He got more shifts. Like,
he had a break,
at 14:34, he had more minutes than Brock Besser did. So, or I say minutes, he actually had just under a minute more than Brock Besser on time on ice. So, I mean, if he's getting punished, that punishment isn't so harsh that he had been completely grounded. Yeah. Interesting to note, Pettersson, close to 21 minutes that game. Like, when you look at forwards, there isn't anyone who really comes close. Garland at 18:56. But this is sort of, indicative of how PD's been approaching the games as of late. And I actually have a Cody Severson post that I want to share after we talk Edmonton, which on that note maybe makes sense. Edmonton Oilers roll into town. They're hot. They've got Draisaitl. They've got McDavid. These guys apparently know how to hockey.
Yeah.
And Vancouver has been showing signs they've forgotten how to hockey.
This is true.
Right. So if I tell you the Vancouver Canucks are going to get 3 goals in the first period, all within about 4 minutes of each other, would you believe me?
I would find it hard to believe. I did find it hard to believe. But I had also seen
2 of them are going to be on the power play too.
Well, exactly. That was the other hard to believe part. But I had also, obviously, it was Hockey Day in Canada, and earlier that day we had seen Habs go from 3-0 after losing 7-3.
So I saw the scores 3-0 Habs. I'm like, this is good.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people are like, it was 3-0. And I'm like, what does that mean? I don't understand how a game goes from 3 buzz late in the second to 7-3 for the lead.
Yeah, I saw the 3-0
That was the
score,
game I'm upset.
And then
Matthews only got me, I think, one point out of that. That was the one I was pissed off about.
Damn, Austin
Matthews on my roster.
But yeah, no, I put my phone away for like a couple hours. I was doing a quiz, so no phones allowed. So I was quite shocked when I pulled it up again. Yeah. Obviously, there was a lot of noise before the game. Will JT Miller play at all?
Well, I mean, yeah, right. Like over the course of Hockey Day in Canada, there's talk that JT might be sitting this one out. And suddenly there were 3 non-roster players in New York. So 3 other players down in the minors all sat out, 2 of which were their like top 2 scorers in their farm team. So people are like, there's a deal. This is what's going to happen. We were talking about in C4 Discord, and I had sort of shared how if this is what we're getting back for JT, I'm kind of okay with it. I know I'm a pessimist, but at this point, it just means the drama's over and the contract is off the books. I actually consider that a win. That's not to suggest I want to get rid of JT that way.
Yeah.
And the value is horrible. I don't want to lose that type of value in a trade either as a fan, but
yeah,
I mean,
that's
I'm
a sense
sort
of relief. Yeah, there's a sense of relief for sure. Getting something back for an end to the drama. Like,
oh, I just need to stop you there, Anna. Has JT Miller been traded yet?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay. Continue.
But I mean, it's worth checking. I feel like we need a Google alert on JT Miller's name. Nothing yet, but yeah, who knows? Yeah, we've been through the ringer with JT Miller, haven't we? Like from his very arrival in Vancouver, where a lot of people said, "Oh, this is a hell of a player." Canucks are giving up a lot here. Is this the right time to do this? Because we were in the middle of Canucks suck. But he came to do very well. We had in the middle of the bubble playoffs, I think it was, that the Canucks account was like dunking on people for thinking the trade was bad when, which is like my least favorite thing, that people just say, well, if you had this information in the future, you wouldn't have said that. Yeah, okay, but they said at the time. Anyway, plus JT Miller almost being traded before he signed his extension, Canucks betting on JT. And once again, like, no one's ever saying that JT has not been a great Canucks player. Like, he had a 99-point season when Canucks missed the playoffs. Like, he's a great player. And when he's engaged, he's one of the best players to watch.
I think, but that's when he's engaged. And this is where we're starting to see more and more disengagement. Like anyone who might go and say, well, it's the media running him out of town, or these fans are running him out of town. I'm going to actually sort of bring Brian Burke into the conversation.
Sure.
I'm currently reading Burke's Law. And one of the things that he talks about is how you look at Canadian markets. He's like, Canadian markets, stereotypically, we have issues with sort of players who make a lot of money comparative to other markets. But then there's other things. But he's like, specific to Vancouver, he's like, Vancouver is an highly educated market who carries some of the same Canadian stereotypes, but Vancouver fans will go to the end of the earth for a player who works hard night in, night out.
I mean,
and like, to me, that's the part that's missing with JT. Yeah, you can knock Petey, but Petey has been showing he is willing to work hard. Yeah, the production's not there. We all want that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more people who are willing to accept that that'll eventually figure itself out, but no one will go and bust him on his effort. And the Cody Severson, post was, Elias Pettersson is single-handedly showing that, one, he can take this team over, or let me rephrase it. It's Elias Pettersson is single-handedly trying to show Canucks they need to trade a teammate by showing, one, he can do it all on his own, and two, his effort level will be multiplied. Like, that's what PD did against Edmonton.
Yeah.
I mean, he was drawing penalties. Now, I want to give JT credit because earlier I talked about the Vancouver Canucks zone entry on the power play is horrendous. It still was horrendous against Edmonton. But those 2 power play goals they scored were because they won offensive zone faceoffs, and JT Miller was just a beast
in the dot. Yeah, like, really,
like he was engaged
and
against Edmonton.
And I will say, like, really not an easy day for JT Miller to deal with all that and then show up on the ice. But like, he really showed like what he can be when he's really engaged. And I do think that his post-game interview was really mature, and he dealt with the difficult questions pretty well. So yeah, I still don't know what the answer is. like whether he should stay, whether he should go, because it's one night. It's not.
Don't worry, we'll come to it in a moment when we get into half full, half empty.
That's true. But yeah, it was a
back to the game. Canucks are up 3-buzz first period. Hell of an effort. 16 shots in the first period alone. Like, this is the type of Vancouver Canucks team we're accustomed to seeing from time to time. Those 16 shots in the first period, unfortunately, did not translate to continued effort in the second or third, where they got an 11-shot total combined. 5 fewer shots over the course of 2 periods than they had in the first. Edmonton, you would think, oh, they must have dominated the play and turned things around. Not at all. Edmonton's shot total was actually 15 for the game. Now, the problem is Edmonton has Draisaitl, who could score goals, blindfolded with his stick, super glued to his butt.
From behind the goal.
The first goal that he scored, he's like an inch in front of the goal line and somehow finds like this tiny gap, dings it in off the far post past Demko. It's like, I don't know how Demko can stop that. Like, that's a miracle save if he stops that. Then on the power play, this one, he's a little further in front of the goal line this time. Unfortunately, power play wide open, and Demko was having to go across the ice. Unfortunately, got a puck banked in off of him. So, unfortunate. But the Vancouver Canucks 3-0 lead is now 3-2.
And the thing is, like, Draisaitl, like, maybe the second best player in the league. Just phenomenally talented. Both goals pretty amazing in terms of the angle he scored from. But like the first one, Canuck dishes up the puck to him. Second one, Carson Soucy should have cleared the puck. He doesn't. So it's just like.
Well, okay, I was thinking about this. The Roenick pass to Draisaitl in the first goal.
Yeah.
Like, Roenick's clearing the front of the net. He's throwing it to the sideboards. Like, and he's not actually throwing it up the sideboards necessarily. Like, he's throwing it more into the corner. Like, I get that he dished it up to him, but Draisaitl is like shooting the puck from Victoria. He's so far behind the goal.
Okay. But to me, he doesn't like get the puck far away from him.
Fair enough. And we saw more of the same from others, Desharnais and Forbort in the third period. Soucy had a real stellar outlet non-pass or non-outlet pass. And
Forbort on the rush is a thing I just never want to see again.
Wide open net.
Yeah.
Oh, anyhow, so the Vancouver Canucks go into the third period leading by a goal, and to their credit, they played a real sticky, crusty, slow molasses style play that really hamstrung the Edmonton Oilers. Yes, McDavid and Draisaitl looked scary. The few opportunities they got generally came off of their sticks, but the Vancouver Canucks did a really good job at harassing the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, good word. Harassing.
So much so that in the dying moments of the game, with Skinner on the bench, Connor Garland went and looked at the dictionary and saw that harassment had a needs picture sort of, placeholder, and felt that his profile picture would make a suitable addition.
I mean, if that doesn't sum up Connor Garland, yeah.
Like, he
said, this is Connor McDavid, the best player in the world. I'm just going to hold on to him real tight.
Yeah, I mean, like, Garland was all over McDavid, so much so that one might argue he was faster and more vicious at, slowing McDavid's game down than Jaws would be over an unexpected, college student swimming after dark.
Oh, gosh. Yeah,
anyhow,
that was,
the point is,
good.
McDavid was so frustrated. And like, you look at Garland, like, if the Canucks had gotten called like for an interference penalty, a holding penalty, or like all of the above, check. Like, but when you don't have the puck and the dying seconds of the game are slowly ticking away, taking your minor penalty to the box is not going to be a problem. Connor, however, decided that he needed to introduce Garland. I say Connor, so Connor introduced to Connor. This is the problem. Yeah. So McDavid introduced to Garland the shaft of his stick. And Garland, like you could tell, like even in fans in the building, like McDavid knew exactly what he had done with the moment he had done it and dropped to his ice and like he snapped. Ensuing scrum occurs. Lots of, pleasantries exchanged. Over in the corner, though, Tyler Myers has decided that him and Evan Bouchard need to introduce the sticks to each other. I think Bouchard slashed Myers first. Myers then returned the favor. Bouchard then skates towards Myers, probably asking him, directions to the Roxy or something like that. And Myers pointed him towards the Roxy using the shaft of his stick. But the problem is Myers is like 8 feet tall, and when you just hold your stick out, you're pretty much in someone's face.
Yeah. And I know that hockey players don't think about every single moment of the game when they're, it's not like Connor McDavid was thinking holistically about the game, but like, oh my God, Connor McDavid got away with so much. Not just this game, but this entire week.
Well, he speared Ronak in like the neck. I mean, and this is, you could say, it was in the spear. Okay, fair enough. It wasn't vicious, but he took the blade of his stick and was pushing Ronak in the neck.
Yeah.
To end, I think it was at the end of the second.
Yes. And then obviously he's gotten away with previous things this week. And it's funny, like we've both talked about how stars of the league need to be treated differently. And we do believe that. But that is more when people hurt them and injure them.
They should be protected.
Rather than, what they can get away with. And yeah, it just seems like Connor McDavid can do whatever he wants at this stage. And I don't have the official discipline come out.
No, it hasn't. So we know that Myers is having a phone call. I hadn't actually heard what was happening with McDavid. And I meant to look it up before we recorded.
You get an automatic phone call, right? If you get a game misconduct.
A match? Yeah. But like, we agree Myers is getting suspended, right? Like you and I think on the same page there. You poked fun at me suggesting that maybe he and McDavid are going to get the same suspension.
Yeah.
Now, if Myers had not gotten a match or his own match for an entirely different incident within the sort of same scrum, I genuinely believe McDavid just gets a fine. But because Myers was involved, I believe the NHL will look at, we can't give a fine to one and a suspension to the other. But now that I've sort of slept on this, I can see Myers getting more. And, I sort of shared some of the thoughts I had in C4 Discord. Comments had come out like, because Wes McCauley announced every player on the ice gets a minor. And, people are like, well, wait a minute. The Edmonton Oilers had 6 players on the ice. Why did the Canucks not end the game on a power play with 2 seconds left? Well, the way it actually worked out is, yes, every player on the ice got a penalty. All the players on the ice, save for McDavid, got minors. And so what happened was Bouchard only got a minor for slashing, not for roughing. Myers got a slashing minor. And then the remaining players other than McDavid all got 2 minutes for roughing. So when you do the math, you're like, oh, Myers got technically the extra 2. That discounted the fact that Edmonton had 6 on the ice.
By the
game management, I got no problem sending them all to the dressing room.
Neither.
2 seconds left.
Like 100%.
But that extra 2.
But I just think supplementary discipline is a mess in the NHL and has been for a while. Literally, I googled Tyler Myers just to check there hadn't been any decision yet. And the first article that comes up is Edmonton Journal. Is NHL smart enough to see Tyler Myers' cross-check far worse than Connor McDavid's? Like, just of course saying that. And I do.
Who's the journalist?
It's David Staples. It's not one of the big hitters that usually defends Edmonton Oilers. But yeah, I think Sportsnet threw up the sort of Carson Soucy playoffs. And like we said, we didn't really have a problem with Carson Soucy getting suspended for a game necessarily, but the fact that Connor McDavid's actions just repeatedly don't factor as anyway, he just wound, he cross-checks Carson Soucy, right? And then Carson Soucy cross-checks him in the face, which you can't do. Like, but it's just like, yeah, it's just frustrating because Connor McDavid makes a habit of complaining when he gets away with so much.
Yeah. Well, Vancouver Canucks get the 3-2 win. Is all right in the hood. Who knows? JT Miller not yet traded, but it's Vancouver Canucks Dice and Ice event. If you don't know what that is, it's a sort of a charity fundraiser that they have. Essentially, people buy tickets. It's very expensive to go to. It's sort of, black tie, very formal. And Vancouver Canucks players sort of man like, gaming tables, like poker, blackjack, I think, stuff like that. And then there's
the dice pop,
some entertainment. Yeah. But more might come out through other channels. Looking at the week that will be, though, the Vancouver Canucks have another game on Tuesday against the Buffalo Slugs. Buffalo's in town. 7 p.m. start, so I will get to watch this game, unlike the ones on the road when I'm coaching my daughter's soccer. But then they go on a very short road trip on Thursday. Any guesses as to what city the Vancouver Canucks grace on Thursday night?
Of course, it is the beautiful city of Edmonton.
Oh my goodness, this will be a fun one.
Also will be interesting depending on which players are on the ice, right?
That's true. I mean, it's the code is going to be applied one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw this week Desharnais obviously had to fight Tanner Jeannot.
Had to. Yeah. Teach Jeannot that lesson from November 7th. So, Vancouver Canucks go to Edmonton, and the players that make it back from Edmonton get to play the Washington Capitals at home on Saturday night.
Yikes.
Before then the Canucks go back on a crazy road trip. So they're home for 3, away for 1, home for 1, away forever. NHL scheduling at its best. But looking at those 3 games, Anna, Buffalo, Edmonton away, Washington, what say you?
2 points.
Are you going to tell me which game they get the 2 points from? Because
even though the city is probably riding high on their NFL playoff victory, does it scare you when I know things about NFL?
Hey, the Commanders looked good.
I was in a bar earlier. That's how I know. Otherwise, I would not. But yes, no, I do think they do beat Buffalo.
Okay.
But yes, I do think, I think the game against Edmonton is going to be interesting. I predict a lot of penalty minutes and not a lot of goals again. And I predict Ovi scores a hat trick and gets even closer to the record.
Okay. So I feel the Vancouver Canucks will get a win against Buffalo. I'd like to know what's going to transpire before the game in Edmonton, because I feel like Edmonton could go one of 2 ways to exact its revenge, completely fly off the handle, which actually benefits the Vancouver Canucks, or decide that they're going to go and score 20 goals. So if the Edmonton Oilers go with the we're going to score 20 goals approach, Canucks lose. So if I have to hedge bets, I'm going to say the Canucks likely lose in Edmonton, and then they come home and lose to the Capitals.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think you and I are on the same page.
Yep. I'm going to actually write it down this time because I literally had to listen back to see how badly I'd got the last prediction wrong, which was very badly. Oh, well.
That very close Winnipeg game.
Yeah.
But we are close to a break. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
remember when both JT Miller's agent and Elias Pettersson's agents showed up in Montreal to talk to respective players? I read that with, oh my God, they're both going, woe is me, the sky is falling. Well, it's since come to light through the connections of Elliot Friedman that Petey has gone to the team to say, one, I want to stay here in Vancouver. I don't want to go anywhere. I love this team. I want to be part of the future. And I'd like to think there's some truth to that because Petey has played good hockey. Like, he has been defensively sound. Like, I mean, that game where he got close to 21 minutes, I think that was the one against the Kings. Like, there's a reason why Tocchet is giving Petey minutes. It's not because Tocchet just throws minutes out to players. Tocchet rewards those who show hustle and show effort. Not entirely sure if Miller wants to still stay in town. His answers are just like weird. Like, there's different ways to approach the media, and I'm not going to suggest his way is wrong, but his way definitely causes more curiosity to be held and more follow-up questions. Like, Bertuzzi was kind of like that, right? Bertuzzi would sort of say things or not provide an answer that was a non-answer. That one, like, close this. I can't dig deeper. You've given me enough. Like, I can't, go further. JT's all about it.
Yeah. I said earlier that I did admire the way he dealt with the post-game presser on Saturday night.
Well, okay.
I mean, I was shocked.
That one was a good one.
They offered him up or let him speak. So fair play for the Canucks for doing that. But yeah, I agree. Like, and we don't want to put too much stock on what players say in post-game presses. Like, it sucks dealing with the Canucks media. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't, but at the same time, like, you've got an engaged fan base and an intelligent fan base and a media that cares about that. And they might ask difficult questions, but I don't think in general the Canucks media are unfair. The Vancouver media.
There's a couple of people that disagree with you.
I'm sure they have been, but like, in general, I do think they're smart about it. And they're just like asking questions. They have to write stories. But yeah, if we were just seeing that in isolation, a player being sulky in media, like, that's not something we'd be super concerned about. But when it comes with the stuff we've seen on the ice, and what we're talking about there is a player actively, quitting on plays and really, like, not engaged with, effort wise, that's the concerning part. And then you hear the stories about,
but they're not true. They're not true. It's complete media fabrication.
Well, I think what's really telling is when we hear that Quinn is getting a bit fed up with JT, and then that's
what we think.
Right, but like, that was the rumor, and then that's when the trade rumors heat up, right? Because
so to qualify what you just said, so Cam Robinson, friend of the show, Cam Robinson, had come out and shared that he had heard that there's a more than one star with the Vancouver Canucks who is sick and tired of JT Miller's antics. And he goes on to further say, when you look at the stars in Vancouver, that leaves one, Quinn Hughes.
Right. Mainly. Like, obviously that's a stretch, but it's just interesting whether...
I'm not disagreeing. You could very well be Quinn, but...
trade rumors heat up directly after that. Like, the Canucks are trying... Like, I mean, that is, like, be-all and end-all is keep Quinn happy, right? Because Quinn is nothing without Quinn Hughes.
We've heard Brock Besser comment that he is excited to be with Elias Pettersson again, having been paired with him, or partnered. I shouldn't say paired.
I mean, even partnered is an interesting choice of words.
His line mate. But his comments is like, I want to be part of this. He understands his position right now. He is going at unrestricted free agency. The Vancouver Canucks are somewhat cap tight,
And yes, we've heard they're very far apart, the parties.
Yeah, he's going to get paid in the market. But Brock continues to say, I want to be here. I want to be part of this. But I understand that the team, it's a business thing. Because there's conversation that he could be the one that's traded. Like if the Canucks know they can't sign him and that ship has sailed, if they trade him for something, I understand it. I hate to see it. I like Brock as a player. I think there's a lot there, especially when everything else sort of, clears in Vancouver. It'd be nice to have Brock still in the roster. But to the PD JT conundrum where there was one, both, or neither, do you feel that you're closer to one now? And if so, who?
I mean, I think we both said from the beginning, keep the younger player.
No. It doesn't matter what we think as to who is going to be kept. We're talking about a deal. Because the PD is the easiest deal.
I don't think Canucks are letting PD go.
No, I agree. And the reason I say that is that, one, PD's trade value is going up. His effort since all of this, and really his return, has, exemplified what's so good about his game. Yeah, production's not quite there, but other teams will understand production will eventually find its way back with a player like PD. If the Vancouver Canucks were to trade him, that's not pulling the cord. That's the Vancouver Canucks saying, hey, we've still got a window here. It's open. I don't know how you would think that. You've traded PD, but
yeah,
if they trade JT, that's the pull of the cord and a reset. That's not to suggest a rebuild. You are functionally saying we're taking this season as a mulligan.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And we're going on to the next. Trading PD, it sends weird messages in my mind.
I agree. I mean, I do think trading JT, even though that's where they might be at, is not a good message either. Like, it's bad that we've ended up in this spot. But
they trade PD. I honestly think Quinn's gone. His contract has gone up and he's gone. There's still a chance he could be gone, but
yeah. I mean, Quinn is one of the best value contracts in the league, I'd say, because of how valuable he is. But yeah, I think it's bad that we're in this spot. I do think trading JT is bad, but it's way worse to trade Pettersson as in terms of messaging.
Do you think the two can figure things out, or do you think JT can figure things out and the two can coexist? Or if you reach that point, you're like, gotta cut something off?
No, I don't think I'm at that point, but I'm at the point of trusting that, like, the Canucks know if they're at that point. If that makes sense. Yeah. Like, I'm not, like, from the outside perspective, I'm still thinking, guys, figure it out. Like, you're paid millions of dollars. You don't have to go around to this guy's house for tea. You just have to find a way to, coexist. So I'm still at the point where I'm kind of baffled by, like, it being past redemption. But, like, clearly it's at a pretty bad spot if Canucks are, like, trying to trade a guy who's, signed to they had just recently signed to an 8-year extension. So yeah, clearly it's bad. Clearly it's worse than we can kind of see.
Yeah. I see. I'm the opinion. I think, like, it's beyond the point of return, or no return in this regard. I feel that they have to do something. I hope it's JT, only because I have more money on PD returning to form and having a much longer period of time as to which he's at his peak.
Yeah.
I think JT is a fabulous player. I wish there was a situation that would allow them both to stay, but I don't feel that the two of them can exist. And I feel that what we're seeing is actually like with the whole team, is a symptom of what's going on within the locker room. Like, it's clear it's more than just these two. There are more players that are feeling a disruption or being involved in this disruption, and that never is a good sign. And for anyone out there, like, no, you guys are making this up. You're no different than the media. You're drinking the evil media's Kool-Aid. Yeah, maybe we are, but it's the number of former Canucks players who've backed up the smoke.
Yeah.
These are guys like
there's
when
fire
the comment is
there.
like, you're not in the dressing room. You don't know what it's like. You're right, but those that have been there.
Yeah. I mean,
you can't discount what they're saying.
I think Bo Horvat's sort of comments were pretty telling too. I do think he's not surprised as to how things have turned out. Yeah. And maybe we are wrong and exaggerating. Maybe JT does have food poisoning. Maybe that's why he's not at a team event.
Yeah, and a week ago only got like 11-ish minutes in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, in fairness, he does look like there have been moments where he's laboring. So you're right. Maybe there is something there, but the food poisoning is why he's not at a team event. Fair.
Yeah, and the whole injury thing. Canucks are saying, and JT Miller was saying, there is no injury to PD or Miller. I think we can safely say that PD was dealing with an injury at the end of last season into the playoffs, and that Miller has had an injury that he's been dealing with. Whether that's still affecting his game or not now. Yeah, I just think it's impossible to tell. But I think that's also a clear indication that you can't really trust what the team is saying necessarily.
Mm-hmm. No, the team never lies. They always tell the truth.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying. You're saying that it's a point of no return. Yeah, if they're at this point, it must be, right? If Miller was about to be traded, they must be at that point. I'm still thinking, seems crazy to me that that's where they're at. But, yeah.
Well, we'll be back in a week and we'll get to talk more about this and confirm whether or not JT got traded. Or maybe I have a cold open tomorrow where I'm telling you JT got traded. But as of right now, JT has not been traded. We've reached sort of, the hour-ish point, sort of where we try to wrap things up before we ramble forever. And we had a few more things we wanted to touch on, but I think this is a good sort of point to transition out, or we'll just go and talk more about JT Miller and whether or not he's been traded. If you want to take part in the conversation and tell us how wrong we are, C4 Discord, discord.co/C4 podcast. We're also on all the social medias. At the C4 podcast on Twitter, the real C4 podcast on Threads, we're c4podcast.com on Blue Sky. Yell at us, shout at us. We get comments on YouTube because the podcast does get published there now. And if that is your way of communicating to us, do that too. Don't think that if we don't engage that we're not reading, and we totally are. It's just I continue to forget to reply. That's on me. Totally on me. But Anna, any final words of wisdom for our listeners this week?
Well, you talking about the books that you're reading? You were reading a Brian Burke book.
Yeah, Burke's Law is what I'm reading right now. Just before this, I read Ed Willis's book, which was Never Boring. And then the one before Ed Willis's book was Daniel Wagner's book on the Canucks at the
Which is a fabulous book. I have read that.
Ed Willis's was a fabulous book too. Burke's book I'm enjoying, but it's Burke.
Yeah, and that's fair.
If you're not a fan of Brian Burke, I don't think this is going to change your mind.
Yeah,
it might give you some additional insight, and he does share things because of where he's existed in the context of the NHL and the Vancouver Canucks that reinforce things that you might not have already known or clarified what you didn't know. But yeah, I encourage. I've enjoyed my reading.
Right, and just on that note of sports books, I'm currently reading two sports books. Sort of sports books. One is Hail Mary. I think it's called the subtitle is A Brief History of the Women's Football League, but it's to do with, and I'm talking about
soccer.
No, American
soccer or
football.
Okay. The problem I never know what.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, it's about the professional women's football league that existed in the 70s and the 80s. Mainly the 70s.
I did not know one
yeah,
existed.
It's really interesting. I'm on the Substack of one of the writers, and so they're starting a book club and starting it with their book. So yeah, can highly recommend that. Considering, like, I hate the sport, and I'm really enjoying the book. There's certain, like, very quick paragraphs where they actually talk about the sport, and my mind goes blank. But for the most part, it's just about the stories and the women in the league, and it's fascinating, I would say. And I'm about to pick up again a book about wrestling and Trump. It's about the Vince McMahon book, and now I've completely forgotten what it's called. But it's basically about how Vince McMahon and his friendship with Trump. It's like... I think it's called Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America, but
okay,
fascinating stuff.
I mean, Donald was involved in the entertainment side of things, WWE for a bit.
Yes,
in a year fired match or something like that.
I mean, so it's called Ringmaster, Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America. I mean, his wife was in the Trump.
Linda was like the
Trump cabinet, I think.
Department of Education.
Yeah, so it's just it's very interesting because it's a lot about how wrestling can be a political parable as well. And again, I hate wrestling. I don't understand people who watch it. I don't understand the appeal. But it's a fascinating book.
Okay, is it so when you say hate wrestling, you're talking about the entertainment version of wrestling, or is it wrestling in general?
I would say I hate the
entertainment
version of wrestling, and I don't understand the appeal of the other one, but at least there is more of an pure athleticism, historical element.
Yeah. And just on that note, to make it very clear, like the WWE performers are athletes.
Yes, 100%. And but you're like, but I just don't understand why you would watch that. That's my point. But I also don't understand why people watch boxing and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't watch boxing. UFC has never done it for me. I'll be honest. I enjoy watching like WWE, TNA. Trying to think over the years, all different.
Yeah, I watched WWF growing up.
There's an entertainment component that I enjoy. When a wrestler of my era sort of shows up, the pop, like there's some definitive pop from here at home. Like I have enjoyed that, but I couldn't tell you why I do it. Yeah. Like I know it's scripted. I mean, there's a lot of things about the industry that it's a very, to say they rub me the wrong way.
It's a dark,
is an understatement.
Yeah, dark, undecided wrestling, and there's a lot of that in the book too.
Yeah. Words of wisdom from me is that when communicating to young soccer players, that they should make themselves available by moving to open space on restarts of play, such as kick-ins. They don't do throw-ins at my daughter's age. It's all kick-ins from the side. That apparently doesn't land, but when you tell them, be more like squirrels, less like trees, they get it. And those roots are gone and they start moving. So you got to talk.
Yeah, you got to speak their language.
Yeah, squirrels and trees. Not move to open space, which, I mean.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Little do I know. And I made that, so that I shouted that out today and the girls started moving and like I was on the opposite side. So the other coach, like, you could speak their language.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is
inspiring minds.
So. Yeah. Anyhow, if you reach this point of the show and you haven't yet subscribed to us, please do. I think only ones who make this point of the show are those who have subscribed. If you are a subscriber, tell someone else to listen in. Maybe they'll like us. Maybe they won't, but maybe they'll subscribe. And if you'd like to throw a few bucks our way to help us buy a pint or two to either, wash away the pain of a JT Miller trade or a PD trade or a non-trade, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/C4 podcast. Buy Me a Coffee is more appropriately known as
Buy Me a Pint.
And you can do so either on a one-off basis or support us monthly or annually to get into OTR, C4 Off the Rails, which is something Anna and I record each and every week, about 15 minutes long of us just talking about all sorts of things. And she and I have a lot of fun. In fact, more often than not, Anna gets in trouble. Mm-hmm. You learn some of the deepest and darkest secrets. And most of them, she just volunteers. It's not even me trying to help.
It's true.
So on behalf of Anna, A4 myself, Chris at Lightforce, signing off this week's episode with We Out.